What's up, guys? Lisa here, and welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. If you are new here, this is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. Today's guest was the artist Walwin. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I feel the universe constantly pulls Justine and I towards some amazing people to connect with, and so thankful to be able to have Walwin on with us. We chatted about a certain band that started his journey to pick up a guitar, and I don't know if you're going to guess it, but this band is going to get some love finally. A love of wrestling, which was so fun to talk about. And I know my fiance absolutely loved the conversation I had with him after. How music has impacted Walwyn's life and some MySpace nostalgia that we can all relate to and dive into. I'll have all the links below in the description, as always, to find Walwyn. As always, again, if you are enjoying the show here, please leave us a rating and review. It would really mean a lot to Justine and I, and give us that follow as well. It really helps pump us out there to help people find us. All right, here's our conversation with Walwyn. Hi, how's it going?
Hello.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on with us. And we just so appreciate you being patient with us too in the time zone and everything.
Oh, it's no worries. Honestly, I'm used to it at this point. It's fine.
Awesome. But no, it is like I remember I saw with When the Sun Sets was a big reason I even found you when they posted something, whether it was a cover or a song of yours. And I was like, oh, this is really good. I'm going to follow and get into this music. And then when it was like just seeing more and more, I'm like, Justine, we have to get him on the podcast for
Ah,
sure.
thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's so lovely. I love those guys. They're really cool. I think we might be doing something together at some point. You know what musicians like. We always talk about it and then never actually do anything. But I really like those guys, so I'm hoping we actually do something soon.
Oh wow,
That would be awesome.
yeah, that would because like we Zach having him on and he's such a mental health advocate too. So like those are just us. Oh, gotta look forward to that.
Yeah,
That'll be the secret.
he's great. I loved yeah, honestly, I love your guys' show. I loved his episodes. I listened to the Under Oath one. That one was really cool. Some like massive Under Oath fans, so that was cool to listen to.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so awesome. I we always wonder too, like who listens, who's listening, who is it
Yeah.
resonating with? So that's so cool. That's so
Thank
awesome.
you for letting us know.
No, it's cool. Yeah, no, because I see you guys come up on Instagram quite a lot as well. So yeah, no, checked out the show. Got some good content, and yeah, I love the conversation around mental health, especially to do with like the kind of music we do and stuff. So yeah, it's really cool to have that kind of platform and speak about that kind of stuff.
Yes. Oh, well, we don't want to take too much of your time and we appreciate you. So we'll get into it for you too, because I know it's 11 a.m. by you. So
Oh,
um
you are all good. You are all good. No, I am here. I have time for you guys. It's all fine.
yes, yes. But and I guess too, if people are seeing your name come across and they see the title of this, if you just want to give a little introduction about yourself, just for the listeners to get a little idea if they're like, who is that? What are you all about? All that stuff.
Sure thing, sure thing. My name's Walwin, and I make MySpace music for elder emos and Gen Z emos, and UK based, but seem to travel around everywhere, just spreading emo and bringing it back, and people seem to be digging it, so it's going well. But yeah, no, just having fun, just making some throwback music and making music that I love.
Oh, I loved it. I loved when I saw the Elder Emo shirt you had, and I said, that is speaking to me because Justine and I were
Yes.
fellow Elder Emos, and it is all the rage right now, and it's great to see everything make a resurgence. And I love that it's the only downside is now that the tickets are a lot harder to get than
They
it was
are,
years
yeah.
ago. And it's like, oh, you guys, like I can't even go see Paramore, now, or I'm in the
No.
nosebleeds to go see them.
I was just about to mention them because yeah, I feel like such an old grandpa when like I tell kids like, oh, I saw Paramore in London in front of like 100 people back
Wow.
in 2005, no, 2006, and the girl I was seeing at the time was like, oh yeah, we need to check out this band. They're really cool, and I was like, ah, I don't know them, and Oh my God. Actually, yeah, it was Under Oath as well. So we used to have this festival called Give It a Name, and it was like the UK's attempt at doing a Warp Tour type, like Taste of Chaos type thing. But the lineup was crazy. It was Atreyu, who were my favorites back then
Oh
and still
yeah.
love. Atreyu, Under Oath, Panic at the Disco, Motion City Soundtrack, Taken Back Sunday, and yeah, Paramore opened because it was 2006. And I was like, who are these guys? Don't really care. And I was like, by the end of it, I was like, this is the best band of all time. Like, these are so great. And then went home and just became obsessed with them. And yeah, this was like back in the day. And then, now can't even. I think they're playing here. I'm in Australia currently, and they're playing arenas, here across the world, and really struggling to find any kind of tickets or anything. So yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah. Oh, it is like I remember seeing Paramore in that 2005, 2006-ish time back in Chicago, and they played like this tiny venue, kind of like you're describing, and it's wild to look at them now. I mean, so happy for them and so deserving, but it's like,
Mm,
oh, you guys don't understand. Like, I mean, I could have met Haley Williams if I wanted to, I was too nervous. I was that
yeah.
teenager that was like, now I'm kicking myself, and I wish I wasn't as nervous. And I went up to her because now there's no chance ever. But it's wild to think about that. And again, I love this resurgence, all for it. So I love it.
Oh yeah. I'm always gonna I'm always gonna support it, and especially, and that's why I include Gen Zemos in my tagline as well, because I don't want to be that old person that's like, you can't be a part of this. You didn't have MySpace. You weren't there.
Yes.
I'm not having that, because that was I had a lot of that when I was getting into music, because I started playing guitar. Um this is so like my label were like, "Are you sure you want to mention this in interviews?" And I was like, "It's fine. I'm not embarrassed by it." So Nickelback actually got me into playing music, and got me into and inspired me to play guitar. There was do you remember that Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, like the original one?
Yes.
Yes.
So like
Yes.
Nickelback did it was Chad Kroeger and Josie Scott from Saliva. They did like that hero song,
Oh,
super
Yeah.
cheesy.
yes. I
I
forgot
used to love
about
that song.
that.
It was so sick. So I was watching
Yeah.
that movie, and then like the credits come up at the end, and they play the music video, and Chad Kroger's like standing on top of this building, like playing the guitar, and I was like, that's the coolest thing of all time. I'm gonna learn the guitar. And then I discovered other music from there. And I don't know, I think I see a lot of guitarists do this. I don't know if this is normal, but I kind of started there, and then I was like huge wrestling fan at that time, still am. And this is like 2001, 2. So, we're talking Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park,
Hmm.
like heavy new metal vibes. So I was into that. And then I don't know, I think to learn like quote unquote real guitar music, you end up going back, and all the old guys like, oh, you need to learn Metallica and Pink Floyd and like Sabbath and all that stuff. So I was one of those weird kids who listened to a lot of like 80s rock to try and get my guitar skills up. So I was learning like Master of Puppets, like front to back, and Stairway to Heaven, and all these like old guitar pieces. And yeah, you get all these like old fogies who are like, "Oh, what do you know about, music from back in my day? You weren't there," like all that stuff. So I don't want to be that guy now, because if you look at it in like mathematically, age wise, I am that person now. Like,
Hmm.
we're talking 20 years back. Yeah, 20 years since, we were all sitting on MySpace and discovering all these emo bands that these kids love now. So I'm all for encouraging them and being like, yeah, like, check out like I just started doing this series actually on TikTok that I need to keep up. I was doing like all these undiscovered like emo bands from specifically from the UK, from like the early 2000s. Um bands like basically like kind of where I'm at now, like where people know me and like listen to my music, but I'm not a uh architect, so I'm not a Bring Me the Horizon, like
Mhm.
kind of people on that like level below that people across the pond wouldn't have heard of. So I was like shouting out all those bands, and it was amazing because there were so many kids that were like, oh, this band sounds amazing, and went back and listened to them. And these guys are all just like random dads now. Like, oh, thanks for shouting out our band from 2006 or whatever. So yeah, no, all for it, not gatekeeping over here.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
I love that.
that's the tough part too. I see a lot of gatekeeping right now, and I'm like, we don't need that. Like,
Yeah,
I
in all
love.
the genres, honestly, especially in the goth community, like, it gets really nasty on TikTok with the goth
Mm,
community. But I actually just made a TikTok recently as well, where I'm like, "Listen, millennials, we're not gonna be the new boomers. We're not going to
Mm.
make fun of this new
mm.
generation because they're not like us. Like, we can't become the new boomers. Like, we
No, we
encourage
can't.
them. Like, we should
Yeah.
love, like, let them be as silly as they want, let them be what they're into, don't judge them for it, like, because that's what the boomers did to us." So
No,
I love
absolutely
that you
not.
brought that up.
Yeah, and I think now, especially because we're creating more of a space just for everyone, and like everyone's voice can kind of be heard, and there's so many different flavors that you can have in just a particular genre itself. And I had like a bit of a crisis when I I released a song called Loser in Jordans, and that was like one of my first like newer songs to like get some like recognition on Spotify, and got like some cool playlists like New Music Friday and stuff like that. So whenever things like that happen, like industry people tend to reach out. Um, and I had a lot of songwriters come through, and they were like, "Hey, like we love what you're doing. We'd love to collaborate." And I don't want to like besmirch them too much, but I don't even remember their names. So they're this is like young songwriters, they must have been like early 20s, and they were like, yeah, we've got some like really cool like emo stuff we want to send you. And it was like Lil Peep emo,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
which is fine. And I think that has its own space, and that's its own flavor of emo. But that's not me. Like I'm,
Mhm.
like my main influences I take from, like, I think there's tons of Mayday Parade all over everything I do, and there always
Mhm.
will be. Like that's more where I lie. But like even the phrase emo now, it's people kids now think their minds instantly go to like MGK, or like
Mhm.
even XXX Tentacion,
Mhm.
and Juice World and stuff like that. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that being at the forefront of people's minds. And then the ones that really know are like, okay, I know what actual like emo is. But like I said, there's different flavors, there's different vibes that you can have throughout this whole genre. And I think there's like a space for it all. And it is because we have things like TikTok now, and just an Instagram and everything, where yeah, we can all just kind of be under that umbrella and coexist, and it's fine. And we don't have to gatekeep anymore.
Oh, I love that you said that. That's just so great, and I love that you brought up about Nickelback because I was gonna bring that
Yeah,
up because I'm doing some digging
I
and I
love
was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to bring this up," because again, like, I think you should bring stuff like that up because it's what, I
yeah.
know people wanna say what they wanna say about Nickelback, but back in the day, I mean, and like Chad Kroeger is a musician at the end of the day, and
Mm.
a really great one. And I know people want to make fun of them, and that's fine. But I love that seeing that started your kind of journey and learning guitar and inspired you in some way. I think that's so wonderful. And besides that, has there been any other moments that or memories you can remember of falling in love with music along your journey?
Oh yeah, I mean, So yeah, there was that. That was a pivotal moment. So that got me like into that started the idea of playing guitar. Um, and then I think like any kid, when you pick up something, kind of stumble along for a little bit. And then my dad actually took me to see Carlos Santana at Wembley Arena because my mum didn't want to go. She was like, I don't like this guy. So my dad took me along and oh my that blew my mind. Like he's phenomenal. And I mean that's so far from emo or anything that I was listening to at that time, but I just had such an appreciation for his songs. I mean, he's just got hits. He's got hits for days. So that was amazing. And then I think Slash from Guns N' Roses was the next big like guitar guy that I got into that I just saw on TV and I was just wowed by. So I was quite a shredder for my first like couple
Yeah.
of years of like guitar. Um and I'm glad I like retained some of that because emo doesn't there's not really that many shredders in there, so you don't get to show off as much. Um, but obviously, as a teenage boy, you quickly learn that if you want to impress girls, you just need three chords and some high singing lyrics and stuff. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that instead. Like, no one's impressed by all this like two-handed tapping and stuff. I was like, I'm just gonna simplify it, play a couple of chords, sing some sad lyrics, and that'll be fine. And I don't know. I think it was probably just MySpace and oh, did you guys have Pure Volume? Do
Oh
you remember
my
that
God.
one?
Yes. All the time I've talked about Pure Volume to people. I'm like, you guys don't understand how wonderful Pure Volume was.
That was very like it was more of like a muso like music aficionado site. Like it was like oh MySpace is for fun and whatever, but Pure Volumes are all the serious musicians are. And that was I found so many bands off that. Actually, oh my God, I had the most amazing moment recently. So there was a band I found on Pure Volume called Aurora, and
Ooh.
they are from Sacramento in California. And yeah, it was like all girl like four-piece I guess just emo kind of punk. I just thought they were amazing. And bearing in mind, this was like 2006. I was like on their street team. I was their UK street team, basically. Um, and yeah, they used to like send me merch, and I still have their like old CDs and stuff. And they were just amazing. And then recently, my friend Mo flew over from LA and she was helping me out on my I'm not going to call it a tour, we did two shows. But she was like helping out with like videography and stuff, and I was like, oh, like what part of California are you from again? And she was like, oh, I'm from Sacramento. I was like, oh, do you know this band Aurora? And she was like, oh my God, they're my best friends. And she sent my stuff over to them and they were like, this guy in London's like your biggest fan. It was so weird, and we were like able to connect like through that. And yeah, the singer ended up buying one of my Elder Emo shirts because she loved those. So that was great. So that was like a massive like full circle moment. Like, oh God, yeah, like 20 years later, this band that inspired me a lot to get into music ended up like loving my music. And it
Hmm.
was so just little things like that, like obviously all like the big bands and stuff. But back in the day there was such a community of small bands and just people just going out there and just doing it, and I was just so inspired by that. And there's a whole graveyard of amazing emo bands that just never really like broke through, but I'd seen all of them live and gotten all their EPs and stuff. And I think like there are so many like unsung heroes that I could credit for getting me into this, as well as the big ones like you Taking Back Sunday and Mayday Parade and Paramore and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely like a lot of like the underground scene, and all the gigs that we could go to was like $5 or whatever in some sticky floor venue and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, a lot of those bands I could credit. But first and foremost, Nickelback.
There we go. Some Nickelback love finally. So we're gonna get some of
Yes.
that on this podcast. I love it. I loved Nickelback when they came out, admittedly. Like with that first
I
CD,
did too.
I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
But that I mean, it's just they were everywhere and I
Mhm.
guess they were kind of my gateway a little bit, much like Good Charlotte was, but like Nickelback into that sound when I was younger. So you know what?
Mm.
People can say what they want. I don't care.
Look, everyone did. I don't know why everyone just started lying all of a sudden, but I just like I don't know when it
I think
started, but
everybody initially liked them, and then I don't know what happened, and then
Yeah.
suddenly it was like you just got made fun of relentlessly, and it's like I
yeah.
don't know what the switch like when did it happen and why, but
I think I've pinpointed it to Photograph. That was a
the
bit of
memes.
that yeah, that coincided with the beginning of like meme culture in the mainstream. I'm talking about it like it's an actual like intellectual moment in time that happened. But I think Photograph and meme culture and Rockstar as well. Like, I mean, these are some of my least favorite songs, so it's
Mhm.
fine. But I think that was like the main culprit of it. But before that, you had like, oh my God, they had some bangers. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, especially that first album, like the first couple albums, um, just banger after banger. And I think they don't get the credit that they deserve. So I'm doing my small part to undo some of that because admittedly I joined in. I made
Sure.
fun of them
I
like
think
everyone
we all
else
did
did,
after a while.
yeah.
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 But deep down I was like, nah, but come on, they are sick and very talented band. Have I seen them live? I don't know. No, I think they're wow, yeah, I think they still might be on my list. So
Hmm.
I used to work in this arena. And so I've seen most of my Spotify library live. Just like work would finish and I just like sneak in and watch whoever was playing. So I've seen a lot of people. I was lucky enough to see Linkin Park. I think they were in London like it was like a couple of weeks or something before Chester died.
Oh wow.
So I'm so happy I got to tick that off my list when I could. And yeah, like so many like legendary artists and performances and stuff. So I'm glad I got to do that. But no, Nickelback, I don't think I've been lucky enough to see it, but I've heard very good things.
Ooh, that's in the one band I have not seen. I mean, I love to say, "Oh, I've seen this one and that one." I don't think even at a festival, I don't think they've ever popped up. So I guess
No.
yeah, which is weird. I mean, that's weird for me because I'm like, I figure like at a radio show or something they would have been there, but I guess I got to go see Nickelback now just to see it and
Yeah.
say, guys, like they are cool again. We can go see them. um,
Yes, we cannot be ashamed. But that's the
no.
thing, they sell out like I don't know what it's like in the States, but in the UK, they definitely sell out arenas. I don't know if
Oh,
they're doing stadiums over there, like they must do. So they're still on top. They're still doing fine.
oh yeah, I think they do. I mean, I'd have to check and see, but I'm pretty sure they absolutely could. Like I
Mhm. Yeah.
especially here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure like they've got to because they
Hmm.
come on.
Something we like to do a lot is an interesting way to be able to describe your music to a new listener. If you were to go up to someone and only give 3 words to describe your music, what would they be?
That's very good. I wanna be able to think about this and give you a good answer. Okay, so one I've heard from a lot of people if I'm limiting it to 3 words, then it would be nostalgic but new.
Mhm.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah.
'cause that was something I got in the beginning, which made me lean into like using words like elder emo and stuff. Was that everyone was like, this sounds like something I would have listened to um 20 years ago, which
Mhm.
as a musician can like it's weird. I had to do a lot of like relearning and on that because it can kind of sound like an insult in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to take that for a long time, and I remember I was like hanging out with these guys once, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like put on some of your music," and they were like, "Oh man, this sounds so cool! Like, oh, if this came out in 2009, I would have been all over it." I was like, I don't know how to take that. Like, that's a bit of an insult, kind of, because it's not
Yeah.
2009.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know what changed in my brain. I had to I'm very conscious about my mindset and my approach to a lot of things. And I really try and uh I don't know, just try and like see people's comments for what they are and like see the good in it. And yeah, and I think especially with all the releases I've done this year, I've been very prolific and yeah, basically I've released a lot. I've released a lot of music, and the good thing about that is that you're just getting constant feedback on what you're doing, and it can be very reaffirming when the comments are really good. And yeah, like a lot of people talk about the nostalgia in my music, um, and that just makes them feel good. Like it's not, I think before I was missing the part where they said they enjoyed it, and I was just focusing on the part where they said it sounded old and said
Mm-hmm.
it sounded from something in the MySpace era, but that's such a good thing because I
Yeah.
don't know, they wouldn't say that if everyone, I mean, like not everyone's doing it, but everyone's trying to do it. Um and there's a lot of stuff, and I think a lot of people tend to lean more to like especially when you're talking about pop punk. I think Blink 182 is a very easy band to imitate, if that's not blasphemous to say, but they have a very distinct sound that I feel a lot of
Yeah.
people, like I said, the whole three chords thing, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's very like paint by numbers, but they do it very well. They are the kings of that, and no one will ever come close. But I feel like a lot of people lean more towards that side. Whereas I think my influences were just a bit more obscure, and I think that was just something that people hadn't heard or connected with in a while. Um, so yeah, so nostalgic but new, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the I've just kind of like leaned into that a lot because it's fun, and it's just honestly I'm just doing what I love doing, and if that makes you feel like you're sitting on MySpace again and it's 2005, then that's great, job done.
Oh, I love that. I want that feeling again. I love that you're out there doing that and kind of that feeling is still there because I miss those days. Like so many
Mhm.
times I'm like, I remember like my top 8 and like discovering music and you could just go into anyone's like that's admittedly like how when we loved Anthony Green, Circus Survive. And that's admittedly
Oh
how
yeah.
I talked to him on MySpace. I would write him like those little comments. And I remember seeing him at a solo show of his and that's where I met Justine and we're in line and we're at the show and I was nervous because he came around the corner and I remember him saying like, "Hey, you write me nice things on MySpace." And I was just like, "What? Like that's actually your page? Like we can actually
That's so
connect."
cool, I
And
love that.
and it was just so crazy to think about that and then where our lives took us where now Justine and I are doing the podcast and like to even, have him when there was a time he shared our podcast on his page and again never asking for that but it was just like
Mm.
that full circle of like, oh my God, like MySpace just writing messages led me to this like 20 years later. It's insane to think about.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing like all the connections and stuff we formed. Like I had so many friends and still do from yeah, like same thing, just meeting people in lines
Mhm.
or just like bands we connect with, especially like online. It was interesting you brought up the whole top 8 thing. I need to
Mhm.
do I think that's on my list of things to do a TikTok about. I just have a whole list of like random ideas, and again, I always start things and never finish them. So I was gonna do I've got one song, probably my most nostalgic song is called Stop Living and Don't Dream, and it's just like nostalgia reference after nostalgia reference. And I'm uh oh, that was okay. Wait, sorry, I am super ADHD. I'm so sorry. So I like jump in
Okay.
between subjects a lot, but I'm very good at circling back around to them. So just on that note, another full circle moment was, so in that line, sorry, in that song, there's a line that references To Write Love on Her Arms. And they actually saw that on TikTok and reached out to me, and they were like, "Oh, can we send you a shirt?" And I was like, "You absolutely
Oh
can."
my
Yes.
God, that's
It was
so
That's
like the
awesome.
amazing.
most iconic t-shirt of that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
but circling back around to top eight, so that's so that whole song, I I started doing a series where like I break down each line and in like a joking way, like explain every line to like Gen Zs who don't know what any of this is. And lots of stuff. Like there was a club in London called the Astoria, and that was like the biggest venue. And now I think it's like a car park or something. So just like going through like line by line, being like, "Hey kids, this is what we grew up with." Um, so I need to do that about top eights because I don't think people understand how much of a war zone that was. It was serious
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
Like I
Oh
remember
yeah.
I was in an old band back in those days, and so it was cool if you were a big band, you only had a top four, and it was your like icons, like your main influences. But if you were a cool band in the scene, you had all the other bands from the scene in your top eight, and it was like a community kind of thing. So I was like, oh, let's put these guys in the top eight, and I would always like log on and like change it, and like I think they had like who was the band they loved? They all loved Taking Back Sunday at that time, and like Kings of Leon or someone like that,
Mm-hmm.
and all these like cool like big bands. And I was like, I'd log on and change our top eight to all the small local bands that we were friends with and that we were playing shows with. And if we were playing a show with a band that week, then I'd put them in our top eight, and it was like a community thing. And they were like, "Stop changing the top eight. It's important." Like, it was such like, and yeah, we don't have that anymore. We don't.
No.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
So it's funny, but yeah, I don't think a lot of people don't realize how much of a crazy thing that was, and it was serious. And if you removed like outside of music, if you were like beefing with someone, you take them out of your top eight, and they'd be like, "Oh, why'd you take me off your top
Yeah.
eight, man? I thought we were
Oh
cool."
yeah.
Like it was a whole thing.
Oh, guilty of
Oh
that.
yeah.
I've done that. Yeah, it
It
was
was
like,
such serious business. Like
Yeah, it
any
was
little tiff, like,
tricky
oh, I'm moving
times.
down.
no, it is. And like, in talking about music and in your music, I mean, you recently released Screwjob 97. What I saw, like that has like over, I think I'm gonna say 11,000 streams right now on Spotify. What has been the response on your end? I mean, it's easy to look at that and just be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. What if on your end, what has the response been like to that track?
Oh, it's been amazing. I love it. That was very recently written. Um and honestly, it's just everything I do is just funny to me now.
Hmm.
Like I'm just like I just can't keep getting away with this. So that it's the most obscure thing that I could possibly write about. And so in my head I was like, oh, there's probably a few people that will get it, but I don't know. It's just funny to me that I can just release that as a song. So the actual like I mentioned, I'm a huge wrestling fan. and I'm not gonna like go on about this too much because there are like documentaries on this and like several, and so I'm gonna shorten this to like 10 seconds. But basically, we all know wrestling isn't real. It's a it's a scripted TV show, but there was one guy who was from Canada, and they were like, "Hey, you have to lose tonight," because he was leaving. He was leaving wrestling to go to a like, he was leaving WWF to go to another company that was offering him more money, and they were like, "You have to lose," and he was like, "I don't want to lose because we're in Canada and my family's here, and I want to win tonight and be the big hero." And they were like, "Well, no, because you have the belt, so you have to lose." And he was like, "Oh, okay, well, I will win tonight, but then I'll come back tomorrow and just give you the belt, and then we can go off and do our own thing." And to his face, they were like, "Yeah, cool, you can do that." And then when it got to the actual match, like live on TV in front of everyone, they screwed him over and made the other guy win. Like, and he had no idea. He had no idea what was going on. Like, the referee just like called it, and he was like, "Yeah, cool." And then everyone just like ran off, and he got like really pissed. And that is called the Montreal screw job in '97. And so I took that line, and I was like writing the song, and it was so the song's about someone being cheated on, when so in like this didn't actually happen, but in like the story of the song, the person I'm seeing goes on like a work trip to Montreal, and I think they're cheating on me. So I'm like, "Did you get screwed in Montreal like Brett in '97?" And that's like the reference of that song. And only if you are a like a deep wrestling fan from the '90s will you understand the reference. And so many people have been like, "Oh my god, I can't believe like you managed to do that." And I was like, that's fun. That's fun for me. Like, I mean, there's also people that just enjoy it as a song, but the people that also get the reference to it, I'm like, yes, love that. And yeah, I can't keep getting away with this. Like, I can't keep just making all these random songs that just tickle me. Like, I just think it's funny because no one else is doing that. But yeah, to have something that no one else is doing is always great. And yeah, I think it's just especially just for my own enjoyment, and I guess my overall like just my mental health, it's important for me to just do things that are fun for me, and I need to have a good time, and I need to enjoy what I'm doing. And yeah, the fact I literally just recorded that in my bedroom, and I was literally like, I have this thing where like I'll literally laugh to myself as I'm writing lyrics sometimes. So I'm like, I can't get away with that. That's so random. Like, that's so weird and so niche and specific to me. And then I put it up on Spotify, and like, it goes somewhere, and I'm like, this is funny. This is it's just hilarious. Like, I'm just playing a massive game and having a good time and not stressing too much about, oh, how many streams did it have, or who shared it, or what playlist is it on, or anything like that. Um, and it's weird because it's that like very, I don't know, it's something you hear a lot of quote unquote privileged people say. Like, you get all these like annoying like douchebag like millionaires on Instagram that are like, you need to wake up at 6 a.m. and you will own a Ferrari in a year.
Yep.
It's like, oh, mate, like, come on, like, it's, yeah. So I don't want to come off like that and be like, oh, don't worry about getting playlists and having lots of streams, knowing full well that Spotify put me on the cover of one of their playlists last month, which was insane. But I didn't go into it expecting that, or even wanting that, or like trying for that. I was just putting out songs that I thought were funny and interesting, and like, yeah, I was just making songs that I loved, and people seemed to like gravitate towards that, and then all the other stuff came. Um, so that was like my mindset, like going into all that. So yeah, sorry, to answer your question, it's great. People are streaming the song, they love it. But first and foremost, I have to love it, and I have to be interested in it, and because I don't, yeah, literally anything that I'm not 100% on will never make it onto the internet. I'm not, yeah, I don't just put stuff out for purely for the enjoyment of everyone else. It's like it's just it starts off as a me thing, and then everyone else gets it once I'm happy with it.
I love that. And I mean, as a wrestling fan too, I have to ask, have you ever seen that documentary series? It's like Dark Side of the Ring.
Yes, yeah, of
So,
course. Yeah,
like,
that's like
my
go-to viewing.
my fiance is a huge wrestling fan still, so I'm like, I have to have him listen to this track and be like, listen to it. But
Oh,
he
amazing.
he listens, he watches it all the time, and he got me into that. And I'm like, just hearing, I know what everyone says about wrestling, and okay, it's fake or it's this or that. I can't believe it's a big thing, but watching that for me, not being the biggest wrestling fan, but I've come to like, wow, like there's so much going on in the world of wrestling and in at the times, and it's it's just wild to watch that. So I was like, oh, I gotta see, like, now, like, I have you here and someone else that knows wrestling. I'm like, I gotta see who else watches this because it's so fascinating.
Oh, it's so, yeah, there is so much crossover as well. In between the two. And I find, I don't know what your fiance's like, but I am one of those annoying people that I can relate anything that's in my life back to wrestling.
Yes,
And
yes, that's
like,
him.
there's so
Yep.
many, yeah, there are
Yep.
so many storylines. Like, for anyone that's never seen it or doesn't get it or just thinks it's crazy, it is crazy, but it's more, it's less of a sport and more of a soap opera. So, like, anything you've ever seen in like Days of Our Lives or like for my friends back home, EastEnders or anything like that, it's literally like soap opera storylines, but then they get to fight at the end. And that's why I love it. I love the and that's the whole thing. And again, if your fiance is a big wrestling fan, then he's probably into all the backstage stuff as well, because then that's a whole other thing.
Yep.
Because you've got what they're showing you on TV, but then what you have to understand is that you've got these 250-pound muscly dudes who all think they're amazing, but someone has to lose. And they're all getting paid millions of dollars a year, and they all think they're the best person, but they're like, oh, well, on our TV show this week, you're gonna lose and you're gonna be the bad guy and da 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 da. And they say, well, I don't want to do that. I am the best, da 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 da, and all this. And you have to come to some sort of agreement. And there's all this backstage drama. And honestly, there is more drama in that than you'll ever see on the Kardashians or whatever else. Like, there's more wrestling news to do with what is not on TV than what is actually on TV. And it's such an interesting world, and that's why like things like Dark Side of the Ring are so interesting, because they're all the stories that people don't know and all like the hidden stuff. But even just like as a whole, just in terms of like creating a character and an image and everything, that all that feeds into my music so much. And I take so much inspiration from so many like different wrestlers that I grew up with, and and just their kind of like mindset um of like approaching stuff. Like, they're very strong about their characters and their themes, and like it's hard to, like, especially like making music and being on the internet nowadays. It's all about being very relatable, and sometimes you want to just like put out content and just kind of like, I think, yeah, you should always be yourself, but there's a phrase that so many wrestlers use, and like, so everyone knows The Rock, but he's like, The Rock is Dwayne Johnson with the volume turned up to 11. And that's me. Like, I'm Arthur Walwin, but Walwin is me turned up to 11. Like, it's just an exaggerated version of me. And I think that's what you need to do to get people interested in you. And so, yeah, things like that and like the mindset of it is something I take from like the world of wrestling a lot, and just the storytelling of it. I mean, I literally put that into my songs, but
Mhm.
just the way like kind of stories build and evolve and things. I think that's a very interesting thing that a lot of people can learn from and enjoy. But yeah, I'm so excited for you to expand your wrestling journey and and
Yes.
dive into more of that.
Yeah, no, I have ever since, like, being with him, and he's been so into it, and at first I was like, "Oh, I don't know." Now I catch, like, anything that's on any of the, like, the pay-per-views and stuff. I'm like, "Alright, let's get our snacks, let's
Hmm.
watch it." Like, "Where's my Seth Rollins?" Like, "That's my guy," you know? I'm like, when are these people coming out?" Like, and he loves it too, because I was like, "All right, we're into it." So I was like, "Oh, great." I'm like, "You're on." I'm like, "I know wrestling is big for you." I said, "All right, great. There's someone else I can talk to about this that, maybe won't shoot me down because I don't know as much. So this is great."
Yes.
Uh, so Justine, I know I had to jump in. I had to ask about Dark Side of the Ring, but you can go ahead and go.
Uh, what do you think needs to happen to make the scene more inclusive? There's been like little bits of progress, but we definitely have a lot more to go.
That's true. Yeah. There has been a little bit of progress, and I I love what I'm seeing, especially recently, um, with just the I think just the acceptance of different faces and in particular different voices. Um, I'm gonna hate myself because I cannot remember the name of the show, but I have a mutual on TikTok who has a um she has a radio show where she'll only play um bands and artists that feature um women or non-binary people, and I think that's really cool to have that kind of platform. And there's a and as well, I just got played on a radio station out here, and it's in my I screenshotted it so I can remember that and shout them out. Um, our Mosh Pit on Joy Radio. So it's an Australian radio show, and it's the first ever LGBTQ plus radio station founded. And they always play music from that community. And I was honored that they put me in their playlist amongst their wonderful artists that they had on there. And I think just things like that, like where we need to obviously, I mean, those places are starting and those places are existing. And I think we just need to continue to be very open to them and just allow them to thrive. And it's like we spoke earlier about gatekeeping. I think that also extends to inclusivity and just not shooting things like that down. I think a lot of people are very quick to dismiss things that aren't if it doesn't look or sound like what you're used to. I think especially back in the day, people just like don't like it.
Mhm.
And I watched a very interesting interview between Hayley Williams and Phoebe Bridgers, and it was great to hear them talk, but it broke my heart a little bit because I I've heard Haley talk about this a little bit as well, and it kind of made me understand why they've changed their sound so much. And admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of their new stuff. It's just not for me. I respect them as a
Mhm.
band, kind of doing what they're doing, and it's a very new and interesting sound for them. But when you listen to your interview with Phoebe Bridgers, it makes sense about why they aren't as pop punk as they are, and that's because she really was not accepted in that scene in the Warp Tour era of all that, touring with all these like hugely misogynistic bands and even the fans. Phoebe was telling the story of how she got into Paramore, and they were at Warp Tour and Paramore came on and the guy she was seeing at the time was like, "Oh no, we're gonna leave. I don't want to watch this chick band."
Oh.
And she was like, "No, I want to stick around and watch them." And then obviously Paramore came and just like rocked the whole show,
Mm-hmm.
and she was like a massive Paramore fan from that day on. But yeah, like you remember, like a lot of that time, I feel like I did hear a lot of that, like kind of growing up. Like no one took them as seriously because they had a girl singer in their band, and there were lots of bands like that. And I think the sooner we do away with that mindset, then oh my God, you can discover so many amazing bands if you just don't look at things like gender or race or whatever or whoever, like where the band's from, it doesn't matter or any of like that. There's so many amazing artists that I listen to that come from all walks of life. And at the end of the day, it's literally music. Like it's like we're listening to sounds and we're listening to stories, and it's just cool. It's cool to open your your listening palette um when you kind of do away with all that. So I don't know, to answer your question, I'm I don't know the answers to like to improve it. I feel like it's going in the right direction. We just need to keep on doing what we're doing. And like I say, giving, I mean, these spaces are existing, whether, you know, the people that don't like it, too bad. They're gonna,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
things are gonna
Yeah.
these things are gonna keep popping up, you know, like people like me, like oh my God, like I used to get so, I still do every now and again, like less and less, but people are like, oh my God, like you're a black guy and you make pop punk. Like I've never seen that before. It's like, have you never seen that before? Like, are
Mhm.
you sure? Like,
Yeah.
and I there's always one, but to be honest, rarely it's rarely negative. It's just more shock, I think. Um, but you know, there's people like me and Magnolia Park and Passion
Mm-hmm.
Flower and like, you know, we're all popping up and like we're still here. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing. And yeah, just give us a space to do what we want to do, and like, you know, don't dismiss it just because we don't look like five skinny white dudes, you know. It's like it's we're, you know, we're still doing the same stuff, and it's yeah, I think it's important just to have a space for that and just to keep that going. So I don't know, nothing in particular. I'm probably people much smarter than me have ideas on how to like push that forward even more. But right now, I like what I'm seeing, and especially like Magnolia Park. I love seeing how big they are,
Mm-hmm.
um, and how much they're growing. And I would have loved to have a band like them to look up to, like when I was growing up. So even the fact that they exist, and yeah, I just think in terms of inclusivity, let's keep going. Let's keep, we seem like we're going in the right direction. So let's just keep doing more of that.
Oh, absolutely. And I kind of talking this kind of goes into this too, and what we're talking about with your track Famous and kind of talking
Mm.
about those egos and how it's a favorite song of mine. And I love when I had seen you discuss the song too about having people have, especially nowadays, you see it on TikTok. They'll present themselves in a way that maybe behind the scenes it's totally different. But as far as content creation or musicianship, so what? Why do you think this was such an important song, or to get off of your chest?
So for me, that one was, yeah, it was very important purely because it's just so exhausting.
Hmm.
It's very exhausting to be around those kind of egos and just that mindset. It's just not healthy. It's really not healthy to like I was saying before with like my band back in the day and the whole like top eight, top four thing, and just everyone wants to put themselves above the other person, or like the other band that, you know, we're, I think a lot of people, they see a music scene, you know, and they see competition. And sure, to a certain extent, it can be competitive, and it's good to have a little bit of competitiveness in there. But I think if you look at it as a community over a competition, that's such a healthier mindset to have. And and the problem is when you look at it purely as a competition, it just gets you into such a negative mind space. And I think I just got into like a really dark place a few years ago where, you look at other bands and your friends, and they're on these like big tours, and they're like, oh yeah, we're in the charts and winning awards and all this kind of stuff. And you kind of sit back and you're like, oh well, I'm not doing that, so like I must
Mhm.
suck.
Mhm.
Um, but then like, so the thing with me is that like I'm where I am and I'm fine with it purely because I've been able to peek behind the curtain just enough, like just enough that I can confidently speak on what it's like to be a big artist without being a big artist because I've been around it enough. And the work that I do, as a producer, and I do videography and photography as well as a job, and just being a session musician and stuff, and just basically I've been around big bands enough to see the inner workings of it, and a lot of it is not real. It's
Mhm.
not, but everyone is just portraying this image because that's what you need to do. You can't tell people like how you do a lot of stuff because it kind of ruins the illusion. Like um there's a line in the song that I don't think many people have picked up on. But I talk about bions, and I don't know how big of a thing that was in the States, but for a while back home, if you want to get onto a big tour, basically the headline band, what they'll do is they will charge the opening band to play the support slot. And for an arena show, you're talking maybe like 20 grand. And I've seen it so many times, and it's the biggest scam. It's like the biggest scam in the world, where they're like, hey, so maybe you've got like 1,000 monthly listeners, 2,000 monthly listeners or something, and this big touring band are like, hey, if you give us 20 grand, you can come and open up for us on this tour, and you'll play to our fan base. And the small band goes, hey, yeah, sure, like that's great. But the time I saw it happen, they got like three songs. There was like no lighting. The sound was turned all the way down. They weren't allowed to sell any merch. They put all these like restrictions on you. So you
Mhm.
are basically that $20,000 is basically going straight into the pocket of the headline band, and you're just paying for them to have a good time at that point. Like
Right.
that's like
Yeah.
you, and that's on top of all the other expenses you have to do, because if you're on like a 10-20 day tour, you need to think about hiring a driver and hotels and food and all these other expenses that come with just playing a show. So Bions was super big in the UK, and I was looking at it like, especially as a solo artist, I don't have that kind of money to throw at this stuff, but everyone was doing it. Everyone like was like pulling their money together, and people were like getting their parents to remortgage their houses. It was crazy, just to afford to like do this, just so you can say, oh, my band supported this band in their arena tour. And then that basically gives you the gravitas to be able to go on and, off the back of that, sell out your own shows in the smaller venue and be like, oh, well, we just played an arena last week, so we're going to pack out this venue, in our hometown. And it doesn't always translate that way. It's not always, like for like. And, but but people were still doing it because it looked cool and it sounded cool and you could spin it so well on social media. And that's just one of the things that just really bugged me, because I was like, well, I got to a point where I was like, I can never do that. I could never. I mean, still today, there are so many things I can never afford to do, um because they have such a huge price tag on them. But the industry is like, oh well, you need to do this to get to this next level, and I'm like, I just don't have that, so I'm never going to be anyone. um but none of it's real anyway. Like, even if I did, even if I had infinite wealth, if the music's not there, if the image isn't there, like if you don't believe in what you're doing, you can't just like pay your way into the industry. Well, you can. Like,
Yeah. No.
yeah, you probably can. But that's never going to be me. So I had to get to a point where I was okay with that. And like I said, I've seen enough behind the curtain that I know what works and what doesn't work. And yeah, famous is about that. It's purely about being okay with not making it and what is making it. And like, like I say, I just have a good time doing this stuff, and I just pop myself with a lot of the stuff that I do. And yeah, I still think it's hilarious, like some of the stuff that I write about. And yeah, and people seem to like it, so I'm having a good time, and I'm doing it in a way that's authentic to me and being true to myself. And yeah, so famous is about people that aren't doing that, and are getting caught up in it's just the mindset of, like, I think a lot of artists think their first thought is, oh, how cool is this going to make me look, or
Hmm.
how many followers will this get me, over how much will I enjoy this, you know
Yeah,
if that
that
makes
Yeah.
yeah.
no, it does, because that's even like what we do in our podcast. Although it's a podcast, you see it even there too, right? Whether people are boosting
Mm.
everything to get seen, or they're doing this, or they're making all this stuff just to get the likes, get that. And we have here and there boosted just to see, like, what would it do? Like, does Instagram hate us? Do we really suck? Or is it like people don't see us, and you see that, and you see it, or even when we reach out, says, hey, we would love you on our podcast, you see that some people are stuck in that mindset too, with their ego and even that. And it's like, okay, all right, I get it, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay. I get it. You do you. That's all right. We just wanted to ask. And it's like, even that, I see that. And even growing up and seeing my friends' bands in basements, and then getting into the bigger venues. And I could relate to, even though I'm not a musician, when I heard famous, it was like, I know a few people that, maybe they could listen to this, and I see them. I remember them back in my scene
Yeah,
days. So
they can learn a lesson or two.
yeah, absolutely. It is. And I think, um, you know, without music, obviously it's made a big impact, but without music, where do you think you would be today?
Oh, 100% would have been a wrestler for sure.
Mhm.
That's like, yeah. I mean, so that was okay. Nickelback was like the first influence, but in terms of like rock music, like all the entrance music in the early 2000s was so that, like, it was all, I think Nickelback did like the theme for Raw at one point. But I don't think I was watching it at that point. Um, but yeah, it was all like, I mean, oh God, I mean, even more embarrassing than them is my love for Limp Bizkit at that
Oh,
point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there is, okay, so, Lisa, has your fiance shown you the My Way video yet? Do you know about this?
I know. I don't think so.
Okay, ask him, just say to him like, "Hey, can we watch the My Way video from
Yes.
WrestleMania?" And he will freak out.
Oh my God,
It
I gotta
is
write
like,
this
it's the
down so I don't
most
forget.
intense. So it's My Way by Limp Bizkit, obviously, but it was The Rock versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania,
Oh
and they
wow.
used and they used that song for like the promo package, like
Hmm.
the promo video for like before like the pay-per-view, to like hype it up, and it just tells you the whole story that they've had over the year, and like My Way is the backdrop to that. and it's one of my like happy videos that I just come back to like once every couple of months. I would just sit down and watch that, and it's just so intense, and the nostalgia, and it's crazy. Um, but yeah, that was like a big part of my life, and then the music of that just kind of like took over for me. Um, but yeah, I kind of came to a crossroads at a point when I was a kid because I did train for a little while. I found a wrestling school that was local to me when, oh God, I mean way too young to be training. I was like 12, 13, I think. Um, and then that coincided with like I think I was learning guitar at the same time. And then my parents came to me and they was like, we can't afford all these crazy
Mhm.
hobbies. You need to pick one. Um, and at the time, yeah, I think I just like picked music and went down that road. And I'm thankful I did. Then I did start training again before the pandemic. And that was going super well and I was loving it. And I would still there is a world where I would still love to actively like train in pro wrestling because it's amazing cardio. It's an amazing
Mhm.
workout. But also it's just fun. It's just fun to mess around with and like the storytelling aspect of it I love. Um so yeah, probably I would have like lent into that more if I never picked up music. Um but also just from a mental health standpoint, just I've realized that I need to be creative. I need a creative outlet in my life. And I think wrestling is the only other thing that I'm passionate about that has that level of creativity, like, making a character and then deciding where that character fits into stories and everything like everything that I think about in music I would have to think about as a wrestling character and and I guess aside from acting that's probably like the only other thing that would give me that creative freedom and that kind of outlet. But yeah, no, just the freedom I've been able to have with expressing myself in song is incomparable to anything else that I have in my life. So yeah, is that what you meant by the question? I don't know if I answered that correctly or not.
No, no, you didn't. I just love everything you're saying. I'm already like, all right, I'm gonna clip
Yeah.
this part. I'm gonna clip that part. I'm gonna like, I love this. No, and it's kind of what we're going into next. I know our next phase of
Mhm.
talking about mental health. I'm gonna let you go ahead, Justine.
Okay. And then in terms of mental health, how has music played a role in your mental health?
Um, yeah, kind of like what I said. It's just I've realized I'm someone that needs a creative outlet, in abundance. And it's just been able to give me that space to do that. Um, and also it's weird. I don't love talking about my experience with ADHD a lot. It's a very new thing for me, in terms of identifying it. Um, but I feel like the conversation around it a lot, and the reason why I don't like talking about it a lot is because I feel a lot of people like suffer with it more than because I think it has some very good aspects to it. Like I'm one of those annoying people that view it as a superpower more than anything. Like
Mhm.
the way it affects my brain, it's fun. I don't know,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
like it. But I have so many friends that it's really, really like almost like debilitating. And it can just really affect everything from your work to your relationships. And it can be a very hard thing to struggle with. So I don't want to be over here like I'm having a great time and it's
Mhm.
amazing and I love having ADHD and it's great. Um, but to be completely honest, it just it the way it stimulates me as when I'm making music is just yeah, I have such a fun time And it's great when I go into like recording cycles, um because I always forget how fun it is just to sit alone in my room and you will not see me for 3 days
Mhm.
straight when I'm working
Mhm.
on a song, and I just get so hyper focused into it, and the also the fun part about it is that I pretty much do every part of the process. Like I love like programming drums, and then I sit there and I record the bass, and then I record all the guitars, and I sit there and do the song, the like the lyrics, and I'm mixing it and mastering it, and I'm just like living in this world, and I'm just super hyper focused onto every aspect of it, and then the artwork, and I'm such a control freak with my stuff. It's
Mhm.
insane.
I
But
can relate.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun, especially
Mhm.
when like you have those skills you can and then you can actively see yourself expanding on those skills. It's such a great thing to like lock into. So yeah, in one aspect, like that's great. Um, but also from yeah, like yeah, from a like a if we're talking about depression as well, that's also good to have that as an outlet to express yourself. And like a lot of my songs aren't always necessarily autobiographical. I'd say they're more not than they are. It's rare for me to write a song purely from like a verbatim experience, but when it has been, that's probably the most like cathartic thing you can have. um oh god, and then especially once it's released and then people can
Mhm.
relate to that, like so my song Thorns is not autobiographical. That's very hard to say. um but I put up something a few months ago, and it was this guy left this comment on YouTube, and it was he was like going through a really rough divorce, and he was like, "Man, I found this song, and this says everything, I was feeling, and this has like helped me so much to heal." And it's wild. It's wild that I can sit there and write something, and like I say, it's not autobiographical, but I guess some of the emotions in there, I think I'm pulling everything I write, I'm pulling from a certain point that I might have like felt that or thought about something, and kind of pulled all these different experiences into just one like lyrical piece. So I can relate to it, and I can understand everything that I'm saying. It's not just totally made up. But yeah, it still just blows my mind that someone on the other side of the world can listen to that and connect to that, and that can help them through their journey. um but also, if there is anything that I'm dealing with, which I'm very thankful that in my grand old age, it's I have a firm grasp of my emotions, and I can deal with things pretty well. But yeah, especially back in the 20s when your mind's a bit all over the place,
Mhm.
it's good to write out your feelings, and instead of just being like sad and angry all the time. It's yeah, like I say, it's very important to me to have an outlet for those kind of emotions. Um and even just from like it's weird. I think everyone that enjoys emo music can relate to this. Like even though it is very sad and depressing, it is happy time music as well.
Mhm.
And sometimes
Yeah.
you're watching like My Chemical Romance or someone like that live, they're singing about the most depressing stuff, but you're having the best time like at the show. And
Yes.
so me writing that is like I'll write like the saddest song, but in my head I'm thinking about this being played live, and it's like, oh no, but this is going to be such a good time, like just
Mhm.
getting that stuff out. Like actually, that's another thing that people have said to me a lot. I got a message on Instagram the other day that was like, thank you for writing songs that I can scream in my car. And I love that so much because there's just certain songs that you can just like scream along to, like, while you're driving, and you're not necessarily sad, like, but it's just fun to get that out. I don't know, it's weird.
Hmm.
It's a weird, like, but it's not weird. It's fine. Everyone does it, but it's just like, even though we are happy, singing and screaming all this like depressing stuff at the top of our lungs, and it's just good. I don't know, there's probably a word for that, there's probably an emotion for that, but I'm not smart enough to know what that is.
No, I can relate so much. Like I've told Justine, I've told other people too, whether it's the louder the better, or just
Mm.
obviously I cannot scream, but I do what I can when I'm in the car. And it's like I
Yeah.
cling to those type of songs you're talking about when I'm in the car, or it's something about the car. I don't know what it is. It's
Mhm.
like cathartic
Yeah.
to be in the car, have it on, or even you're walking down the street in your headphones and you have it. It's just something about that. And I'll be, if I'm in a certain mood, I gravitate towards certain songs that I know I can get that energy from. And it's the same all these years later, which I love. Like whether I was a teenager to now, like being 37 and like even just saying that out loud, but like it just being in there and having those experiences. And still, like when we did our My Chemical Romance episode, I went back because I hadn't in a while, but it's like, oh, I just love this band so much and what the joy it brings. Like even now, it's
Mm.
so wonderful.
They're so, yeah, they just have some anthems that I'm just
Hmm.
so obsessed with. Like, there's one on Three Cheers called I Never Told You What I Do for a Living.
Hmm.
I think that's the title. And just the ending of that, like whenever that comes on, I'm just like, yeah, just like
Yeah.
absolutely loving it. And they're very good for that. Oh my God, you just reminded me as well. I need to reply to someone. There's a festival in the UK that I think it just started. It's called Thanks for the Memories Festival.
Oh.
And so it's like they get bands to like be a tribute band for one night for one of their favorite bands, and they asked me to do like a My Chemical Romance set next year, and I have to decline because the thing with me, right, is I especially like the big bands like My Chem, Green Day's one of them, Foo Fighters are one of them, I'd say, where I can acknowledge that they're like one of the best bands in the world, and these are all like stadium bands now, but I actively like and listen to maybe like four songs from each of those, and those four songs are amazing, and those four songs are like some of the best of all time. But I couldn't do like an hour's worth of My Chem songs. I
Hmm.
don't like that many of their songs to do that. But I acknowledge that they are one of the best in the world, and I would enjoy watching it, but I don't like that many of their songs. They are amazing. The ones that I do like are amazing. If I could just get away with doing like four of my favorites and people would be happy with that, then yeah. But I think like whenever I bring them up, they're like, "Oh, do you like this song and this song?" And I'm like, "No." Like even I'm gonna upset you guys because I know you're big My Chem fans, but even like teenagers don't like it. I just don't. Not, it's just not for me. But every time that comes on in the club, people go nuts. And in the moment, I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but nah.
Yeah, no. Oh, you're good because I feel like I upset
Yeah,
some
it's okay.
people on our episode when I said admittedly, the Black Parade is not one of my favorites. And I was like, people are going to come for me. It's not for me. I love the concept. I love what they were trying to do. I respect, but
Hmm,
I'm more for Three Cheers. Like that's where I am with
that's
them.
fair.
And it's like, and people, and I know they're very protective of that record. So I even told Justine, I was like, I'm waiting for it. Someone's gonna come for me. But it's like it's good, but I don't know what it is. But it's funny because Teenagers is one of my favorites. So that's just so funny.
Yeah, and it's so many people's favorites as well.
Yeah.
but like um thing I Don't Love You is probably my favorite
Oh
one.
yeah, I love that one.
It's just an amazing song. Yeah, like I said, I don't tell you I never told you what I did for a living.
Hmm.
Um they're probably the two that I have like on a rotation. Like they'll definitely be in my Spotify like library. And like everyone loves I'm Not Okay. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not going anywhere. That song is
No.
not going anywhere at all. But yeah, outside of that, I can't, nah. There's probably a few. There's a random one on Three Cheers, Cemetery Drive.
Oh
That's a
yes.
good
Remember
one.
that one? Yeah, yeah, like just random obscure. I don't know if I don't know if any of their songs are obscure, but ones that I don't think people go on about enough. And then you get the proper fans that are like, "Oh, but this B side of this
Hmm.
EP is like the greatest song ever." And yeah, there's a lot of the big bands I don't go into enough. And like I mentioned, like Foo Fighters, like I honestly believe Best of You is the number one song of all time.
Hmm.
Um but I don't like any of their songs outside of that. But I'll still say that Foo Fighters are one of the greatest bands of all time, but
Hmm.
just based off that one song. And I'm that's just I can yeah. I think I just say that with confidence now and I'm like, yeah, I love them, but just that one song.
Yeah, but oh, such a good one. And it's funny that this is kind of going into this because something I wanted to bring up is you do these amazing covers and you've done them in mashups, like
Oh,
whether
thank
it was
you.
like 1975 and there was a Taylor Swift one, or there was like an Evanescence, I think, and a Paramore. There was, even you did Under Oath was one of the covers too. And I was just like, so, so good. What has been your favorite, whether it was the mashup or a cover, what has been your favorite to tap into?
Oh, actually, while we're on the subject, so
Mhm.
my favorite is one I haven't put up yet, that now this conversation has inspired me to put up. I just did it the other day. I just need to film a video for it, but it is so the music of I'm Not Okay with the lyrics of Dear Maria by All Time Low.
Oh,
Ooh,
And
interesting.
somehow it works. And I was like, wow. But honestly, I had this one night where I stayed up and I just, I don't know, it's just like, again, just when my brain is just in that perfect sweet spot and I'm just very hyper focused and just like into it, just everything was just connecting. I would literally just put on an instrumental from an old pop punk song that I loved and honestly they were just coming to me just one by one. They were just coming into my head and I was like, yes, like this works and this works. um but no, like in terms of covers I've done oh no, I did one of Mayday Parade song. Oh, and I'm blanking and it has the longest
oh,
title. It's
yes. I'm blanking too. I should
uh
know this.
oh my God. I'd hate to be you when yeah, I'd hate to be you when they find out who this song is about. I think that's
Yeah.
um but that one was special for purely the reason that Jake from Mayday Parade reached out and was like, "Hey man, you did a great job on this cover," and I was like, "Yes,
Hmm.
validation." Like that was yeah, that was amazing for me because I just grew up absolutely loving that band. And it's been one of my favorite songs for the longest time, but it's so shreddy. Like they're probably one of the only like emo bands with a couple of solid lead guitarists in the band, and there's like a fat solo in the song that I was just so scared of even attempting that I just
Hmm.
never covered that song. And then eventually I was like, no, now's the time, let's do it. I'm gonna sit down and learn it. I think that's the thing about being an adult with life and responsibilities. I don't have the time like I did when I was a kid to just sit there and learn a song. Like, thankfully, I'm very good at learning things by ear. And if I'm just messing around, and especially if it's just chords, I can just pick up a song and do that. But when it's like specific parts that are iconic and you have to learn them note by note. I just don't have the time or concentration to do that anymore. So I was very scared about tackling that song, but I did it, and the band loved it and the producers loved it,
Mm.
and so I was like, yes, great, this is wonderful.
I love it. And I, again, this has just been such a great conversation. I'm already I know I'm looking at you, Justine, and I'm telling you, I'm literally, I can't wait for this to come out and everything you've said and what you're about, and maybe get more people to send your way to check all this stuff out, because you're just so talented. And I think more people
Oh,
need
thank
to
you.
make their way over there. And I'm thankful somehow the universe, whether it was, okay, I had When the Sun Sets On, and and then finding you and listening in and diving in. And now we're sitting here and you've said so many great things. And I know we've just appreciated you taking your time today and everything with us. If anybody wants to find you and, instead of them just looking at the links I'll post, maybe if they're listening to this, where can they check out everything you have?
Oh, so on every platform, I am at underscore Walwin, Walwin. Um, TikTok and Instagram are, yeah, I think they're the only
Yeah.
things I post on. So with them,
Yes.
but yeah, like YouTube, I need to post on there more. It's just, I'm so sad about YouTube. It's so dead now. But
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
that's where I really got my start. And yeah, a lot of like my like full covers are on there. So if you want more of like covers and stuff, and like more in-depth vlogs about me and touring and what's going on, that's all on YouTube still. But no, I'm always on Instagram, always on TikTok at underscore Walwin. Um, but no, honestly, like, you guys are amazing. Like I said, I love your podcast. Listened to a few episodes, loved it, loved the conversations you guys had. So no, it was an absolute pleasure for me to come on, in fact, and I'm glad When the Sun Sets brought us together.
Yes. Oh, and again, we appreciate you listening and being a part and listening to those conversations. And now you're going to be one of them that someone's going to listen to, which is just so cool. And again, we just thank you so much. And I can't wait for this to come out, and just appreciate your time. And we hope you have a great rest of your day. I know it's nighttime for us, but daytime for you. So hopefully you have something fun planned for yourself. But thank you so much. All right. And that was our conversation with Walwin. I feel we could have chatted with Walwin all day. And I appreciate him taking the time with us. The time zones were absolutely different. And we really appreciate Walwin taking the time, being patient, and making this happen with us. Remember to check out the links in our description below to find Walwin, and head over to our website at www.stereotherapypod.com. You can read the blog for this show. And as for Justine and I, you will hear us next Tuesday. All right. Bye, guys.